Howdy, everybody. Welcome to, I don't want to say highly questionable marketing because we're not gonna take it that way. But we are gonna talk after we did the predictions episode about, we both know, Jurgen, CMOs, it's gonna be rough. Marketing leaders, it's gonna be a tough year next year, right? And we wanted to kind of talk about three ways that you can, one, survive, because I think it is gonna be survival next year. But we don't want to be all doom and gloom. Like, maybe it's about thriving in next year. How the hell are you going to thrive? And I got some ideas, and we both said three, and I don't think they're going to maybe earth shattering, but I think they're going to be critical, at least going into next year. I kicked off predictions, I think. You want to tee us up on this one?
I sure do. I think let's establish really quickly for the listener that this is the same format as predictions, where we've come up with three each. We haven't shared them with one another. And so we're going to go back and forth here. I will say mine are very much a specific one-off type of thing to do, as opposed to, some sort of like big strategic thing that is going to, keep going for like months and months. Well, it's actually a mix of the two, but I'm going to kick it off. So here's how I think about it, right? If I was a marketing leader inside of a company that wasn't already completely crushing it, right? Going into 2023, I would picture that, it is probably going to be a bit tough. And so my number one thing that I would tell myself to do is go have dinner with your CEO.
Damn it, now I don't even like what I wrote down because you're coming in with this
I'm coming with some shit, man. I'm coming with some shit. So here's the thing, right? You need to be able to have a different kind of conversation with your CEO when things are potentially as tough or rocky as they might be. And chances are there's some debt in the mix already, meaning like you're already kind of maybe fighting an uphill battle. You might have a good enough relationship with the CEO. We're not going to get into that whole, like, does the CEO get marketing or not? But I think it's safe to assume that for most B2B marketing leaders in 2023, whether you have a good relationship or not, the dynamic between you and the CEO is probably not optimal. The CEO is under tremendous pressure to deliver the kind of results that the business needs. And so for you to really thrive and first survive, like, you have to probably change the conversation that's going on right now. Did you have something you wanted to throw in the middle of my shit?
Yeah, I did actually.
Okay, I'll let you.
Because Jurgen's out here saying, go to dinner with your CEO, not realizing that remote work's a thing, Jurgen. Like, how many people are in location with their CEO right now? Hold on, this is real though. This is real.
Yeah, you're like my wife, and I'm like, it's great to be such a smart ass, and she's like, well, it's better than being a dumbass. But here's the thing: if you're working remotely, even more of a reason to make it happen. If you're in different cities, even more of a, get on a fucking plane. This is what I'm saying. Literally go to where the CEO is, catch that person outside of hours, sit down for an extended period of time. Make sure that you have the CEO's ear to the point where they will even sort of accept that invite, right? Like, if you can't do that already, you're in trouble, And sure, look, if it's an international organization and you're on the other side of the globe, it's not going to happen right away, right? You're not going to get on the plane just to do that. The spirit of this one is like, go far to create the opportunity for a different kind of conversation with the CEO. And here's what I really want to say about this one. There are some specific things here. There won't be any hiding in 2023. Like, any kind of shit that isn't working quite right, it's gonna be brought up anyway. So you might as well, as the marketing leader, be the proactive one. You might as well be the one that opens up these conversations. You might be the one leaning in with some vulnerability and saying, shoot, yeah, I know this part of the mix has been a real tough one for us, and all that stuff. And get into like the mindset, get into offense versus defense, get into like the real stuff, and level with this person who is leading the company. You kind of got to like make this the best conversation you've ever had with the CEO, and best meaning most honest, most real, most like full of connection.
Most vulnerable.
Yeah, probably. And because it's going to be such a battle that you're going to have that in there, right? I think you really want to move the conversation with your CEO from the typical sort of like, will we hit the quarter type of like conversation, to the, how are we going to do this? Like what are the few key things that this is going to come down to for us to come out on the other end of this? Us in terms of the working relationship, the dynamic, the company overall, like how is this going to happen? So this is my number one, is you got to be able to have that type of interaction with the CEO. And if that person isn't immediately if you don't think the CEO is immediately going to be receptive, then I think your job is to sell that and to work over time to sort of market the idea of that type of communication between the two of you. And I think it is a prerequisite in most situations. I think 9 times out of 10 in 2023, if you're not able to do that, you're gonna get fucked.
Yeah, well, and our advice is to be different. I think it's good, actually. You're coming from a different lens than I am right now. So I think that'll be good. And I'm with you, actually. I think of one CMO that I worked with. A new CEO came in. She was the only person that took that person out for lunch right away, or a dinner, right? And regularly, right?
Yeah.
And nobody else did that. And that's just what you made me think of right away. And I can tell you who had the closest relationship with the CEO was that CMO, actually.
Yeah, let me throw one other one in there too, right? I have had the privilege and sometimes the pain of being at the top of marketing or multiple times, right? And in all my experiences, it's been kind of the CEO who takes the initiative whenever the CEO and somebody from the leadership team get together, whether it is for a quick casual lunch or something more involved, like, hey, we're actually getting together for dinner. Even just the fact that you as the CMO, VP marketing, whatever, would flip that and say, you know what, I'm going to be bold. I'm gonna set this agenda. I'm gonna show the CEO that I am really here to serve, and I'm really here to connect, and I'm really here to win with you. That alone, the signals there are valuable too.
I don't even want to go through mine now after that. Yours was just...
Hey, look, the other ones I have are different. So it's all over the place.
I probably took mine more through, I think, the traps that you're going to fall into a little bit as a CMO going into next year or this year, right? To survive and thrive. And I actually reversed the order of mine, kind of stacking up in importance. So I'm going to go with the lowest one, but I still think it's the biggest trap. But actually what triggered it was a post I saw on LinkedIn, and I've realized holy shit, everybody I talk to falls victim to this. CMOs especially, for some reason. I don't know why, which is I think to survive and thrive in 2023 is actually one thing you're going to have to do is fucking no more campaign planning, period. I think it's going to be based totally on impact planning. Where are we going to plan to have the biggest impact? And the reason I say this, I'll probably get to my other point. I don't want to cover it now, but I just, there's this huge talk right now on learning a little bit, and I'm totally on board with that and process. But what people learn is straight to the campaigns. And that's why I think this really fucking matters. And I see every company and marketing team fall victim to this. They're running campaigns and then it's like, what did we learn, right? What did we learn, right? But you're learning about campaigns and tactics, and this is what people do. And this is 99% of, I believe, marketing teams and what they get stuck in. And if you are going to get stuck right back into that vacuum, like, I think like you're stuck in tactics, and probably you're going to go to a CEO dinner that's just not going to be very good, and it's not going to taste very good because you're going to fucking go there talking about campaign planning and campaigns that you're going to run next year. And I actually believe this whole idea of campaign planning is one of the most toxic things. As a guy that's worked in marketing and sat there in campaign planning meetings, and I've just always wanted to speak up and just be like, this is the stupidest fucking thing that I have ever seen us do. Yet every marketing team does this stuff every single month and every single quarter. And I just believe it's got to stop. If you are it's so easy when things are great and there's so much demand, right? But you got to say no to this. I firmly believe, going into next year.
Yeah, my quick comment here on that was going to be that when the assumption we're making about 2023 is that demand is going to be significantly harder to come by than in previous years. And no, you can't just create it by putting out some cute content. It's a little bit harder than that. So if that's the case, then aggressively moving straight to campaign planning, pretending as if you're just going to pick up all this business, does sound like, a trap. It does sound also to me like the type of thing you do when you're quote unquote obsessed with revenue, right? Because when you're obsessed with revenue, then you spend a lot of effort around the things that are closest to essentially a conversion type of thing, right? And so I hear you. I think it's a big trap. I think that it's still a bit like counterintuitive to some and a bit controversial too. Provocative, gets the people going, But really it's interesting also that you're framing it as a stop doing that and instead do impact planning. I think it'd be worth you spending a minute on what you actually mean by that, though.
This is just me living in the everyday organization. And I think if most people are honest, this is what most people do. When you are trying to reach a goal or reach a quarter, what I have found marketing teams do is they get together and they plan campaigns. That is what they do. They get together and they come up with ideas around campaigns they're going to run. They're like, right, little creative. Ooh, what if we have some fun and we do, look, here, I'll give you, right? What do we do? I've worked in cybersecurity for a while. This is the type of shit we would brainstorm, right? Things around using the word breach, like don't give a breach, right? Like that's the shit you come up with when you are campaign planning. And it has very little impact on actually reaching your growth goals. And that's what I mean when I think about like framing this, right? Is where are you gonna have the biggest actual impact to drive meaningful growth? And that will never come from a campaign planning meeting. And I think it just is gonna come from like asking, actually, one of the best exercises I've ever done when it comes to trying to figure out growth is like constraint exercises, right? Like what my best constraint I have is always time. That's when I get my best ideas, but different constraint exercises, right? How would you do marketing if you didn't have a website, right? And it's not about whether that's right or wrong. It's just to think about it differently with different constraints, because I actually feel your marketing gets substantially better. And that might push you more towards the impact angle, right? Where are we going to have the biggest impact? Well, let's think about it through different lenses. What if we couldn't do X? Or what if we could do Y? What type of marketing would we do? And I think it just changes the conversation.
I like it. So my second I guess, advice to CMOs is, it sounds so simple and it sounds naive, but I believe it to my core. Focus on the one thing. Just the one thing. 80-20 rule, whatever you want to call it, like the one thing, the steak, I'm sorry if I apologize, some vegans, the one thing that has the potential to make the biggest difference for the business. It's not about doing more with less. It's about getting clear on, in a world where you have less, how are you going to get as much as you need? How are you going? This idea, Jay, that, yeah, it's all about spinning up as many revenue programs as possible to hit revenue targets is completely foolish. That makes absolutely no sense. In a world where demand is shrinking, budgets are shrinking, teams are shrinking, everything under the sun is shrinking. When everything is shrinking down like that, to try to think that you're going to combat that by having multiple different revenue drivers all over the place. Oh, we're going to test this, and then we're going to try this, and we're going to see this, and we're going to try, like spin up more to see what's working. That's a desperate act that is going to have a very, in most cases, going to have a very limited return. And what instead is going to work is for you to get real, for you to be honest, for you to put your romantic views about how marketing should be done in your ideal world, a mistake that I'm super guilty of over and over again, because I am, like into a certain kind of marketing. So I go, well, wouldn't it be dope if we did this, like that? Yeah, no, but we're really supposed to be doing it. That's out the window this year, You might be able to earn an opportunity to run marketing like that in the future if you get through this period right now. But you get through this period right now by being completely honest. And as we've talked about before, Jay, getting the entire leadership team to be honest about this primary way that growth is going to happen. And once you're even close to that, you need to become the ambassador of no. You need to be, it's no to everything else at this point. It's like no is the new yes.
Yeah, but shouldn't we do that Raise the Dead campaign, Jürgen? We need pipeline this quarter.
Yeah, on when there's 2 weeks left of the quarter, what about all those closed losts? How about if we send them one more email? Yeah, by the way, I've done that as recently as like a couple of years ago. It's not like I did that 10 years ago. I did it a couple of years ago. Okay, like we all. This is the thing, right? Like this is not about saying how great of a marketing leader I am. It is getting real about what you really would need to do right now. If I was a good enough marketing leader to be a marketing leader right now in this tough situation, this is what I would be telling myself. And I believe that anything other than this is putting you at a tremendous risk of not only failing to hit goals, but burning out yourself and burning out the little bit of team you have left. And one of the most important things that we can do for our teams is to push back against this idea of do more with less. That's not an individual level thing. That is a company has to figure out somehow how to do more with less to be more efficient. Each individual person is not responsible for doing, more with less. But teams are responsible for figuring out how to have impact with less. To your point, right? That's really the thing. And so you have to focus on the one thing that has the highest chance of bringing the real impact that you need. And you need to show your team that this is the way. And I'm going to be the one who takes the heat if this doesn't work out. But we're going to talk about this and we're going to agree on the primary way that we're going to make this happen this year. And it's so easy to say, right? Because of course, a million things come up and you have to deal with a lot of it, but you got to try your absolute hardest not to.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump around then to my next point, and then we can talk about this if we want a little bit more. You are very into this. Like you are just. I'm letting you go. But you're probably gonna agree for the most part. But I said build total alignment on the opportunity for growth, right? Or what we call a growth hypothesis. So, and I think you're gonna agree. Number one, like right, this isn't just like marketing less with less. It's not gonna work if you don't have the entire company, I think, behind a total opportunity that enables your marketing team to do less with less, to focus, to drive impact. Because I even said, like as my bullet, I still think as a marketing leader, the biggest challenge is while people might feel aligned, and I do think they do, is that you're still speaking different languages, in my opinion, on how a company gets to that growth. And this is such a sneaky thing because nobody realizes it. Because no one really had, like most executive level growth conversations, in my opinion, are setting OKRs for the year. We kind of get together, we set some OKRs, and then, well, we're aligned on this shit, so you got to go execute as your department. But that didn't answer the fundamental question to align the company on how we grow. We always just align on targets and shit like that, it seems like. And that's not what, or at least I'm talking about, I know you're not talking about, right? Like we're talking about the company defining the primary way and mechanism in which they are going to drive growth so that everybody at the company speaks that language. And then you can answer the question where I think we talked about briefly, right? It's really easy to say no to bad ideas. I think I could easily say no to a Raise the Dead campaign, right? Where it's really hard is to say no to the good ideas because we always get a shit ton of good ideas. And the only way I know that you can say no is if the company is focused on a core opportunity that enables you to answer, how does what you want to do align to that opportunity? If it does not, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means that's not where we're focused right now. And we're not going to tackle that issue. And it is what you said. I think it's very difficult to do this. I think the CMO still leads this, but like we're talking about company alignment to me that enables the marketing team to bring that focus and do less and be more impactful.
Amen, brother. We have been talking about this on the podcast, this fact that the biggest opportunity for a marketing leader that isn't really talked about is getting the entire leadership team and from there the entire company to align around how growth is going to happen in the season you are in or entering. That is what it's about. Very, very challenging, but that's where the bar is. I just think like what you said there is totally right. So hard, but if you can't do that, it's going to get rough.
I believe that's the nuance between we talked about survive and thrive. If you don't have that, you don't thrive, right? You might be able to find a way to survive taking the other bits, right? You might just skirt by and get through this year, but you sure as hell ain't thriving. And that dinner with your CEO probably don't taste very good without that alignment either, by the way. It's probably where maybe I'm starting that conversation is at the dinner table, maybe.
So my third one, you've gotten a preview of this one before. I call it Remix the Talent Mix. And that is all about understanding that you now have, I see you dancing. That's great, man.
It's a remix, man. I'm just getting into it.
This is the remix. You're not going to have the luxury of going in and saying, well, I'm going to need my demand gen person. I'm going to need my event person. I'm definitely going to need my designer. I'm going to need this. You're not going to fill up the entire potential marketing team inside of a typical B2B company in 2023. Like that's not happening. But what you should be doing is you should really look at the overall budget and have a conversation with the leadership team and with HR leadership to understand. Sometimes there's these nuances with like, okay, so I'm given this marketing budget. Does that actually include the hiring budget, or is the hiring budget this separate thing? And like, do I only unlock parts of the hiring budget when we decide on this over? There's these separate conversations sometimes. And I think the opportunity here is to have a new conversation about that and just say, not like we're going to fire everybody, right? Like not that, but let's take another look at this. Like I want to know, like, how much am I spending on the marketing team and how much am I spending on all the other marketing, and how can I just take another look at that combined, and how can I say, well, for the first half of the year, what's going to be really important is that we do this, this, and this. And in a world where so many people are adding, you know, advisor or consultant or whatever to their, you know, little descriptions and what have you, you can find the right talent for limited periods of time, and you should be doing that. You should act like it's more than just like finding a cheap designer on like Fiverr, right? Like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like mapping out, let's say, the year, understanding what the initiatives are going to be roughly when and what you need for those, as opposed to, you know, this, well, you know, I need to have this type of person. There's no way that we can possibly pull this off without, you know, this kind of function stood up within the marketing thing. Like you just have to rethink all of that completely and be far more scrappy. And in that, also be aggressive internally about like getting as much budget as you can when you are making those decisions that are resulting in those kinds of cost savings. So like there's like a new conversation to be had around how we resource for the stuff we agree that is priority and that the CEO is bought into.
Yeah, I'm with you, right? Remix the talent mix with elevate demand, essentially.
Oh, look at you, huh?
Wow,
trying to sneak in a little plug?
No, I agree, right? For far too long, it's been somewhat hiring into growth, right? We're hiring prepared to grow. And that has been such a trap for so long, because then it just puts so much more pressure on everybody. Because look, I've been in an organization where they weren't growing, right? And you're sitting there as a individual contributor at the time, right? And you can do the math. You can say, we have a lot of headcount, right? This shit ain't surviving much longer if we don't drive growth, right? And that is so much anxiety on the people that you depend on in your marketing team. And I think other departments and people ignore that happens. They pretend like, right. And every company tries to like keep things secret sometimes. Like, that's not how this works. Like, people talk. Nobody's stupid. Like, we all know how much everybody's making, and we're doing the math and we're figuring this shit out and going like, this is not sustainable. Like, right. So I think that's number one, at least with your thought there is, yeah, we're not hiring to then grow, right? Like, first, I kind of like what you said, which is like, hey, maybe I'm setting like milestones or something that prove maybe I have something sustainable that then would allow me to hire to scale it even further, right? Or outsource talent and things that I need so I don't maybe get stuck with that, because I do think that sucks, right? Hiring someone and 3 months later, oh, we don't need this anymore. It doesn't happen a lot, but it definitely happens. And you need a lot more flexibility in marketing, I think, right now.
You do. And, you know, just to emphasize what I think you kind of were saying there is you no longer hire to figure something out. You hire when you've figured something out. And that's on you as you're going to like this one, deep generalist marketing leader that you are. You're able to figure out how to know if something is going to fly or not before you hire, say, like that director of demand gen, you know, is going to come in and solve all our problems.
We just get content going. Just get content going first. Got to hire that, right? And then we're going to run ads. So gotta hire that. And I gotta redo the website. So gotta hire that. And that's how this shit usually goes.
Again, though, like guilty, right? Like I've made that mistake. And so this is not like on a high horse, and this is not saying that, marketers are stupid for, not understanding this. It's like, it's coming from pain and coming from mistakes, and reading, how this is going to play out now is you have to be really proactive, I believe, relative to this, and switch it up. Like, and it doesn't mean like death to the marketing team. It doesn't mean you're just going to like fire everybody. Like, it just means that you are really going to look at it differently and act differently, and also not lean on not having insert that role as a crutch for why you haven't figured some shit out.
Yeah, right. I'm going to say one more thing and I'll move on, right? But it's too much of, I did this here, I'm going to do this here, right? We had content, and there's just this over thought that content works everywhere, right? I'm at a new org. Well, we're going to do SEO. This is who? Like, is that how your buyers buy? Is it easy to rank? Like, those are questions that don't get asked anymore. It's just assume I'm going to do SEO. I've done it the last 4 companies. We're doing it.
Third one for you, man. Here we go.
So not sexy, not awesome. I don't think many marketing teams at least do it. So I'm thinking about a way to survive and thrive as a CMO in 2023. And I think how I've lived and work in house, and I've never had this, which is one of the first things I'm going to do is to build a process so that we can run hypothesis-driven growth experiments to learn from. Too many is building a process with a list of activities. And I think the big takeaways here is 1, hypothesis-driven, right? No more of this idea of we're just kind of doing stuff and we're going to figure stuff out. You have a very specific hypothesis on what you think is going to happen, number 1. And I've never worked at a company where they actually did that. Yes, we do that as an agency, but I have never, nor have I ever talked to a marketer where they actively do that, because that sets the foundation for why you're doing what the hell you're doing in the first place. If you do not have an hypothesis, which most don't, they go, oh, we need new ads, right? That's number 1. You need a process that lets you do hypothesis-driven experiments. And number 2, you need a place to capture those learnings. We do not talk, and I'm willing to bet with all the layoffs that have happened, one thing people forget. All those learnings that were in people's heads that are now gone, and all these companies, I'm guaranteeing you, are about to rerun things and experiments that have been tried multiple times already in the past. And the only reason they're rerunning them is there was never a place to systematically capture learnings and share those learnings across a marketing team, but also an entire company, because I think it creates a lot of value to share those things.
Yeah, ain't that a bitch? Like really, like that is just, so you've already done something that probably isn't really working. It's not really in line with, a thoughtful, well-aligned kind of growth strategy to begin with. It's sort of like experimentation almost for the sake of experimentation, although we pretend that it is in the name of being revenue obsessed. And, we're doing it over and over, and the people that are responsible for it, yeah, they might document it a little bit, but then, people churn and some new people are coming in, and it's just like, yeah, let's just kind of repeat this stuff. What that brings me back to is this, like, as a way to, really protect yourself against that, again, focus on the one thing. Like, it cannot be, I'm so tired of this narrative around marketing that it's all about trying a bunch of things and seeing what works. Like, how stupid are we if that is our primary way of figuring out how to drive growth for the business? Like, on one hand, we're saying we're so revenue obsessed. On the other hand, we're saying we're damn near clueless. We're going to try anything under the sun. We're going to throw all the shit that we can possibly throw at it. And then we're going to hope that something works. And the few things that might work, we're going to double down on. And then we'll try some more. This is the way.
What really gets me going with that, actually, one thing you said, which is, I think a lot of teams find something that works, by the way, early, and they double down on it. But the other thing that pisses me off really quick on why this process stuff matters and shit, is they never think about the ceiling of what they're doing either, which is they just expect it now that they're going to get their exponential growth from that one thing. And they never think about the ceiling. And again, these go with hypothesis of experiments and the learnings and how you can figure out these ceilings. But people just always act as though it's up and to the right once you find something, and you just do more of it forever and ever, and you just keep growing. And then it takes them 2 quarters to fucking realize that it's not working. It's like, well, you never thought about the ceilings of these things. And I am actually shocked looking back throughout my entire career that nobody thinks about the ceiling. Like, nothing seems to have a ceiling for people. And we bake in, when working with clients, the thought of when and where and how is this going to plateau. So we are ahead of it. Just off topic a little bit, but irrelevant.
Hey, let's land this plane. So you, Jay Barron, you work with a lot of CMOs, MVPs of marketing through your little agency. That's very nice. Just zoom out for a second with me here. Mm-hmm. If you all of a sudden were put in one of those people's shoes and you're here, it's January 2023, and you're about to embark on this mission of leading this depleted, potentially team, working with a limited budget, possibly rebuilding some trust with a CEO, developing the right relationships with the rest of the leadership team, getting up to speed on all things customer and market, and working through all these challenges. We've thrown three of our own best, so total of 6 thoughts at this. What are your final thoughts on what it would really take to actually be successful in this scenario?
Yeah, I'm doing 2 things. I am taking the CEO out for dinner to talk about building alignment around a growth strategy for next year. That's what the fuck I'm doing. Because if that doesn't happen and we don't have an alignment, you might as well just go straight to survival mode and just focus on that. And all this advice is out the window because you're going to do campaign planning because you have probably a Q1 goal to hit. And process be damned on learning. You just got to get shit done. But that's my real advice. I think, yeah, it's probably taking the CEO to dinner like you said, and we're getting fucking aligned. We are getting aligned on an opportunity for growth. And it's not going to be we're going to take growth however we can get it. Marketing's not successful like that. I don't know how to prioritize marketing around that. I'm not prioritizing, we'll just figure it out. That's a trap. That's not how this works as CEO. Sorry.
Sincerely, best of luck to all our friends out in B2B marketing land.